Imagine this, if you will. One day you're at work with all your coworkers, and you look out the window and there's a police car coming, a number of police cars, and behind them are television news vans. And you're like, whoa, what's going on here today? And this big police force rushes into your building, and the news cameras are right behind them. And what's going on? What's going on? And they rush into your office. Like, whoa, what is going on? And they come for you. And they say, you are guilty of fill in the blank. The worst crime you can think of. And the news is there, and all your friends are watching, and you're just like, what's going on? I don't understand. And then they take you to the police station, or the jail. And while you're on your way, you are now front page news. You're on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. You're all over the internet. You're all over Twitter. You're all over Facebook. And everyone's sharing it and retweeting it. And everyone in the world knows that you have been arrested for the worst crime you can think of. And then you get to the police station, they let you out, and you walk in and say, you know what, our bad. Got the wrong guy. And so 3 days later, the news releases a short little thing that says, by the way, they let him go. But everyone in the world has seen you arrested. And everyone still thinks that you're guilty. And all of a sudden, your friends don't really want to hang around with you anymore. Your coworkers really don't want to go out to lunch with you anymore. And your life has changed. You have become an outcast of society. It's a hypothetical, but I don't know if you've ever heard the name Steve Bartman. 10 years ago this week, he was at a Chicago Cubs baseball game, sitting in the front row, and a foul ball came right to him. And what do you do when a foul ball comes to you? You put your hand up and think, a foul ball. And he tried to catch it. And so did Moises Alou, the outfielder for the Chicago Cubs. And the ball fell in between the two of them, and neither one of them got it. And before Steve Bartman made it home, everyone in Chicago knew his name. And everyone was blaming him that the Chicago Cubs had lost to the Florida Marlins. And to this day, 10 years later, that name goes around Chicago like a cuss word. Man's life has been ruined for what? Doing the same thing we would all do. That's what it was like to have leprosy 2,000 years ago. Nobody wanted to be around you. If someone was walking towards you, you had to say, I have leprosy, I'm a leper. Literally, you had to get out of their way. And so when Jesus is walking by, they get as far out of their way as they can while still being in distance for Jesus to hear them. And they say, have mercy on us. Isn't it nice to know that sometimes when we don't feel as close to God as other times, we can still cry out to God and God will hear us. And Jesus from a distance, we have so many stories of Jesus touching people and healing them, or the woman who came up to Jesus and touched him and was healed. But Jesus, just from a distance, says, I got ya. And they're healed. I don't know about you, but I've had moments in my life where I've felt far from God. But at the same time, I know that God was working in those moments, just as God works in those moments where I feel so tenderly, intimately close to God, like we're sharing the same breath. I think we've all had moments in life where we've been healed. I know there are people in this congregation who have been healed by God. Someone told me their doctor said, I don't know what you're doing, and she called it divine therapy, but keep it up. I know there are people in this congregation whom God have provided for, possibly through a pantry. When I was in seminary, and let me tell you, this is probably not what you're expecting me to say. When I was in seminary, it was about as far from God as I've ever been in my life. There's nothing spiritual about going to seminary. My second year, I got to the point where I was down to nothing but a bunch of overpriced books, a loaf of bread, and peanut butter and jelly. And I didn't know how I was going to get through the next week. And I thought about walking out of that seminary so many times and going back and begging for my old job. But every time a check would come in the mail for a scholarship that I didn't apply for from a church I've never heard of, it happened so many times it began to feel like a joke. I mean, it was just funny that every time I was down to nothing, something would show up. Maybe you have been forgiven by God and not realized it because you were so far away. But I think all of you have received the same gift that the lepers received that day. Because when Jesus healed them, he not only made them well, he gave them their life back. As Jason told us, they were forced to leave their house. They were forced to leave their city, their community, their family. When Jesus healed them, he didn't just make them well, he gave them their life back. And the gift that God gives us in Jesus Christ, the gift that Timothy talks about today, is those who die with Christ surely will live with Christ. When you look at the Garden of Eden, sin has taken away the life that God had wanted for us, this life of perfection, of relationship with God. And when Jesus dies and raises from the dead, he gives you that life back. That life which can never be taken away again. We still may die, but yet we will live forever and ever. And so, this one leper turns around and comes back and says, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's interesting that Jesus looks at this man saying, thank you. And what does he call it? Your faith has made you well. It is an act of faith to say thank you for what we've been given. We are starting our stewardship campaign, and the theme that we've come up with, the stewardship team has come up with, is share the gift. Share the gift. Share the gift that you've been given. In our first reading today, this man comes to Elisha, who's a leper, and Elisha says, just go wash yourself in the river, and you'll be okay. 7 times in the Jordan River. And the guy gets angry. Oh, come on, give me something more difficult. I can do more difficult. That's too easy. It's not going to work. I don't like easy. I like a checklist of things to do. I was talking to Tim Draney yesterday. He said when he grew up in church, he had a checklist of 20 things to do, and you'd be a good Christian, right? We don't like easy. We like checklists. If I can do this, 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 if I can point to doing this and getting this done. But this is what's so beautiful about the message of Jesus Christ. There's nothing you can do to earn it. Nothing. And so when we enter into this stewardship campaign, we're not asking you to earn your salvation. We're not asking you to earn God's love. We're not asking you to earn God's favor. We're not asking you to do anything except give thanks. And whatever that might mean for you. It is with thankful hearts that we can support organizations like Mid-Cities Care Corps. And it's with thankful hearts that we can support organizations like Grace. And it's with thankful hearts that we can make our community a better place. And if we can make our community a better place, thankful hearts can make our world a better place. Amen.